I know you don't consume a lot of the product nowadays. You're busy. You got a family. You got a young son. You got lots of projects. But do you have any? Because I'm just thinking about it now because of the streak. Do you have any get any feedback on Twitter or have any thoughts on the Undertaker's winning streak ending at WrestleMania so abruptly and surprisingly?
Yeah, I mean, people were in an uproar about it, and everybody's got an opinion. It's like a butt, But I mean, hey, the reality is, Mark was in the business way before I was in the business, and I know Mark from back in the Atlanta days, and back in those nightclub days, and when he was rocking the world back then. And that was years before I even got in the business. And let's talk about since I've been out 10 years, he's still been doing sporadic appearances. And so, there does come a time, when he's got a family and, his body's going to deteriorate like anybody else's. I mean, whether it's Taker or whether it's Goldberg, when you get older, man, things catch up to you.
Yeah.
And there's always got to be a time. And, hey, what more worthy opponent to lose to than Brock Lesnar? Because even in the fictitious world and the unrealistic world sometimes of professional wrestling, I'd rather be beat by no other person. Because physically, in reality, Brock can rip guys' heads clean off their shoulders. And so what a formidable opponent to lose to.
Right.
Whether he's a part-timer or not, that's a different discussion. But the reality is he puts people in seats. He did it in the UFC. He does it in WWE. If used properly, he can be a force to be reckoned with. So, I really don't. JR, I haven't watched a product in years.
I got
you. I didn't see Taker lose. I just hear through the grapevine, how it went down. And I talk to Brock frequently, and we don't talk business. None of the boys and I ever talk business.
That's good. Obviously, I had a great deal with Time Warner. And which is cool. Matter of fact, we had the same agent, at least at the time. You had the same agent I have now, and he does good work. And then I look back at your career from the professional side. You mentioned earlier you've been away 10 years, and I'm there in head of talent relations in 2003, 2004. McMahon running the company. Obviously, he's still He was a horse's head, and I was a horse's ass. I get that. But, when you look back at your WWE run, it seems like, and this to me this is a positive, it seems like you were there longer because you were really ubiquitous in the opponents that you wrestled a lot of different guys, but you were only in WWE a year. And it seems like to me you debuted right after WrestleMania 19 in 2003. But I go back and look and say, well, Goldberg works with Rock, major programs, Rock, Jericho, Triple H, Lesnar, in a year. So of all those guys, did you have any favorites or are there any of those guys that really sticks out? Because I happen to think that your program with Rock was one of the ones that if Rock was ready to leave and go do movies, but that could have been really extraordinary if it had been allowed with all the variables in play to be played out longer. I thought that would have been really, really spectacular.
Yeah, I thought they all could have been played out longer. There's no doubt. I mean, we had a time limit on the time that I was contracted to be there. My time there wasn't the most positive by any stretch of the imagination. I think indicative of me going gray with my goatee in 1 year. There were a lot of guys that I loved to work with, and it was very gracious of the opportunity to get in the ring with, because every time I did, I learned. Even the last day that I wrestled, the last opponent, Brock Lesnar, I learned in that match. It wasn't anything real favorable, but I had a good time with all of them because I thought that I could bring out the best in them as far as what they could do to deal with an immovable object. Rock was so entertaining. Jericho was entertaining. Brock and I, that was a huge opportunity miss there.
Mm-hmm.
It's just absolutely huge.
Big.
Build up or lack of build up, and then the the lack of physical activity leading up to it, and then the finale, you know, which was just, it was piss poor because of so many factors, contributing factors. But I really enjoyed Brock because, you know, like one of my dreams when I got into wrestling, I mean, I always wanted to go to Japan because it was a stiffer style up there.
Mm-hmm.
It was more realistic. You know, I never wanted to throw a punch and miss a guy and have him, you know, react.
Right.
Because it's embarrassing. And so that's why I may have been a little bit stiffer than the normal human being. But I didn't want to insult people's intelligence, and I figured that, you know, hey, if the guys couldn't take it, then they were in the wrong business. Because
yeah.
I wasn't generally trying to hurt anybody. It's just every once in a while you lay one in, and, hey, man, lay it into me. When I went to Japan and I wrestled, it wasn't Kojima. It was one of the Pride fighters. And his translator looked at me and he says, oh, he wants to start the match off with a stiff headbutt. And this guy couldn't speak English, and this is why I went there. And I said, that's absolutely fine with me. You tell him he can do anything he wants to me as long as he understands that I'm going to do it back to him the same exact way.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, that may have been the definition of pancrase, and maybe I was in the wrong business. But I think that's what I brought to it. You know, that little bit of reality. That people were like, you know what? I know this is pre-contrived, you know, it's contrived and it's, you know, predetermined, but
right.
And that looked like it really hurt, you know. And when I picked the giant up and we walk around the ring with him and dump him, I mean, you know, people may say wrestling's, you know, predetermined and it's fake, but it ain't fake. It didn't put wires on his legs to make him a lot lighter.
All right.
That's for sure. So
yeah, you're right about that. You know, people, but they still don't take. A lot of fans, they overthink the predetermined outcomes, and they underthink the journey it takes to get to that 3-second finish. The physicality and the wear and tear. There's no season. There's, you know, or I guess more specifically, there's no off season. You're always on. You're always beating the hell out of your body. I'll debate that to my death about. My pride for the guys that earn a living in pro wrestling. I really will.
Yeah, but it's really tough. I mean, you put yourself in a promoter's shoes, and I mean, I guess all it takes is much more creative thinking to make a guy go away for a period of time and give him a little break and understand that it's like, you know, plugging something in and recharging your phone. I mean, I've always been of the opinion that, you know, you can be great in public as long as you have enough time to recharge at home.
Mm-hmm. I think that in the territory days, you'd have a stalwart in a territory. Let's say, like when you were a kid and you were watching the Von Erichs or that promotion, and they had a red-hot heel. That heel would get his run. He would have the blow-off with Fritz or whatever. Then he would leave.
Yep. Okay,
so he would go, but he would leave and go to another territory. Now, with no territories, if WWE would strategically book talents to be absent, would leave television, they could either go help train in their performance center, they could take time off to heal, they could be a dad, they could go to Little League games. God knows that WWE can afford to pay them, and then they freshen up, and then they come back. And it's like you don't have the territory to go to work, but you can still leave, and you need to leave and let your body heal. I'm not saying there should be an off season, but there's got to be better management of your resources so guys have a chance to recharge their batteries, without question. I agree with you on that deal, 100%. Yep. Hey, do you regret not working a program with Austin or The Undertaker while you're in WWE? Because I look at it as a fan, and I call that match you had in the Garden at WrestleMania 20 with Brock. I felt bad for you guys. The fans were pissing all over both of you when you came out in your entrance because they knew you were both leaving, and you know, it was an unattainable situation. You couldn't win. You could not do anything to win, and it was what it was. You got through it admirably, I might say, but at the end of the day, before you left, and if the things had worked out differently, if you had stayed another year, let's say you renegotiated and stayed another year, would you like to have worked at something significant with Austin or Undertaker? Because I think, as a fan, that would have been big money.
Well, I mean, it'd be huge money. It'd still be huge money, JR. I ain't dead yet, but, absolutely. I mean, once I dove headfirst into that business, you can't help, as a competitor, to look at the top guys and want to have a program with them and want to, show your game versus theirs and try to put a good, memorable match that, people will be talking about for the rest of their lives. And, me and Austin would have been absolutely unbelievable. Me and Taker would have been unbelievable. It would, the same mentality, different body types, different move set, but devastating at the same token.
Yeah.
But I truly believe that, they both would have brought out the best in me. But it takes time to do that, man. And, I was in the wrong place at the wrong time at that moment in my career. Austin had been hurt, and Taker was far away from me as
Yeah.
Georgia from San Diego.
Yeah, I hear you.